Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Messy Middle. And today I have my guest on the show with me. She's my good friend, DianaGladney. We have known each other for, I think, about 2 years now. I think that's about
Yep.
when we met. And this lady is so dynamic. She's just going to rock your world today. She is currently the author of a new book that is called The One Right Video. And we're going to talk about that today. And really, what I love about Diana is she's able to come to the conversation. Every single time I talk with her, she comes to the conversation and she cuts through all the bullshit that might be dancing around in my mind and helps me take action. And so she's going to do the same thing for you today. Welcome, Diana. How are you?
I am doing fantabulous. I'm super pumped to be here.
Yeah. So as we were talking and just talking through the intro, we laid out some really good things. Why don't we dive into the conversation? And if you want, give us a little bit of your background and what you're good at, and then what your area of expertise is. And then let's get started on helping everybody who's listening to the podcast today, how they can take those steps forward.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, as you shared, my name is DianaGladney. I am an entrepreneur, a content creator extraordinaire, however you want to phrase that. But my business is all about helping simplify the video creation process. So, whether that is the tech side of things or whether that is the strategy side of things, my specialty, as it were, is helping to simplify that so we can get back to the business of why we wanted to buy the cameras, why we needed to learn the video strategies and stuff to begin with. I believe in everyone doing their purposeful work. And if we had more people actually activating their purposeful work in life and doing that, then the world would be a much better place. But the way that you do that, I believe the best medium in the world is going to be a video because it encompasses everything. It's the written, it's the audio, it's the body language, it's the everything. It's as close as we can get the belly interactions in person, and video does that to help amplify your message. So that is what I help entrepreneurs and content creators alike do.
Wow, that's so powerful. I love that. It's totally packed and pregnant right there. Okay. One of the things that we were talking about and is what do you do when you're first getting started? Like you have these ideas, probably in a corporate job, and I was reading in your book your story in going from a corporate job at a bank and then just getting tired, like a little bit sick and tired, and you had a sweet friend that almost punched you right in the face and said, "Hey, it's kind of time to get off your ideas and get going." So let's start there.
Yeah, 100%. So I was definitely probably where a lot of the listeners were, where, yeah, you go to work. And my morning prayer honestly just became complaints to the Lord. Like, I'm sick of this job. I'm tired of it. And I knew I would be getting amped up and really frustrated in my prayers. I just kept speeding. The more angrier I got, the faster I would drive. It's just taking me no time to get to work anymore. And so I just noticed every day it's the same. Lord, I'm sick of this job. I'm tired of going in here. One of these days I'm going to walk in here. I'm going to quit. And that literally became the thing that I would say every day, to the point it was so funny. One of the sweet ladies that I worked with, she would call me Eeyore, nickname me Eeyore, because I would be
Oh, yeah.
so pissed off in the morning and just, oh, it's another day. Oh, I'm so sick of this place. When I would log out from work and come home and do the 5 p.m. until you faint kind of a thing, I would be so excited trying to do my own work in my business, learning videos, learning the whole YouTube atmosphere and social media and stuff, and just learning to build a business outside of that. And what it was is that I did this for so long. And what happened was, this is the after. What happened before was I wind up just like I moved into a new apartment. And then I just noticed I just started having pains every day. And it just kept getting worse and worse until it was the worst pain I ever felt, just every day for 16 months nonstop, the worst pain of my life. And I finally was like really stressed out and like really frustrated. Like, what if it's something that is like uber horrible? Don't Google a symptom. It's going to turn into red toe disease where you never get your foot back. It's just like the worst of the worst. And I finally went to doctor after doctor, specialist after specialist. And after I had been fed up and had enough, and I finally went to the last one at the behest of one of my friends to just go one last time. And then if we can't find anything in St. Louis, then we'll go to another state and just go that route. And it wound up being that last specialist that found that I needed to have emergency surgery. So within a few days, I was in the hospital. And that emergency surgery turned into a life-saving surgery because I didn't know how close I was to the death's threshold. So it woke me up to not only realizing that life is going to be a little bit more challenging, now discovering I had stage 4 endometriosis, was pulling on my appendix, and that was rotting, and it had flipped and it started pulling on my intestines. And that was one of those tubes was about to pop. And so like the surgery photos are really gnarly because I'm thinking I'm in my mid 20s at the time. Like, I'm gonna wake up and be fine. Like, you take some medicine, like you heal up, you ready to bounce back. But that wasn't gonna be the case. And so having that life-changing surgery, or life-saving surgery, changed my life because it woke me up to, you know what? I don't have the privilege to have as much time as I thought. Mm-hmm. And like the one day things became like the eventually, and like that stuff didn't exist no more because I don't have that privilege. I'm like, I'm already now on my second go round. Because I could have died on the table, and he had to stop my surgery to go get another surgeon out of surgery to come help. Like, it was so much stuff that they just was pounding me with of what happened and how bad it was. When I woke up from surgery, I'm like, what are y'all talking about? What do you mean I almost died? That doesn't, like, that's not me. That's not my story. It was laying in that hospital bed, having to tell my older sister, who thought it was no big deal or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, no, I almost died. And it's, oh, shoot. And so that made me change everything. And I hope nobody has to go through anything like that. But like I said, that opportunity to reevaluate now my perspective on living woke me up to, I don't want to go back to work because there's nothing else worse, in my opinion, for my life at that point than not knowing why I'm here. And I could have died and I didn't do anything.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that threw me for a loop. So every day there afterwards was being in the process of figuring out why I'm here, what I'm supposed to be doing, because I'm already on a second chance. And so when I got to that part in the book of my friend telling me, she was recording back to me something that I had said, which was that we getting too old. We can't keep playing with the Lord. We're going to have to do this one day or another. Eventually I would complain to her, my morning routine of getting up, driving fast to work, upset, angry prayers. One of these days I'm walking this job, I'm going to quit, to texting her. And she finally said she had enough.
Yeah.
And she told me, she said, you know what? You the one told me we don't have all this time. You going to stop, either going to trust God or you ain't. And I was like, you right. So I walked into the bathroom, looked at myself in my eyes, back reflecting through the mirror. And it was weird because nobody walked in, which usually was pretty busy. Nobody walked in. And I was just like, Lord, I'm about to do something that is beyond me, makes absolutely zero sense, but I have nothing left in me to stay at this job. I can't do more jobs. I just can't.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm finna quit. If it's anything that like you can tell me, show me, share me, anything, I don't care if somebody walk in the door, like whatever, to make me stop doing what I'm about to do, that sounds ridiculous and stupid, then now's the chance.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. And I waited for a long time. Nothing happened. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm finna quit. And so I packed up all my stuff, walked over to my supervisor, catching her coming out the restroom later. And I said, my keys, my badge on your desk. Can you badge me out? I'm resigning. Right. And from that day till this day, it's been a constant pursuit of just, again, did I earn today? So it's that simple question. Did I earn today for the second chance that I've been given for life? And so again, like I said, when I look at stuff, it's very simple. Did I earn today? Or am I giving myself excuses for why, you know what I'm saying? Basically, I can go sit back in that cubicle, and that becomes the nightmare, not the almost dying part for me.
Wow. And I know part of our story is been a medical crisis in our household, and that we've been walking through the last couple of years. And there's nothing like a medical crisis that can wake you up to the reality and the sobering understanding of God never promises us any more than today. And so what am I going to do with today? And it shifts. I hope as someone's listening that they understand you don't have to get to the spot where you have a medical crisis to make some changes. You maybe don't get there because sometimes that makes it a little bit harder along the way. But wow, your story is so powerful, Diana. I love being able to dig into it more because some of the things that you said is you just were talking about. I made a little note here. Did I earn today? So what does that mean to you?
It basically, am I honoring the faith that God gave me to give me a second chance? Am I honoring that today? Did I do all that I could? Not that I don't give myself some grace, not that I don't take days of rest or whatever, but am I actually doing the work? Did I actually put forth the effort that if I, like, for some reason, anything happened and today was my last day, could I feel confident with saying, yeah, Lord, I gave it everything. That second go around, I gave it everything. And so every day is just knowing whatever was on my to-do list, it got done for a reason. And if it didn't, then I'm confident, like, obviously, that I may have tomorrow, but even if I don't, it's, you know what, I earned today. I did everything that I could. Every opportunity that I had to show up, I gave it everything that is within me to be here and to be present in that moment. I gave it all. And so it was something I learned some years ago that just came back, like I said, after the surgery of Jesus. He didn't die empty. He died finished. And so that bothered me because at that point, like I said, I just start to evaluate it's the before and afters all day long. I would have died early, dying early at a young age, but I wouldn't have died finished. I don't really care about the age so much so, not that I would want to go early, but it's did I die finished? And that's the goal. Is so whatever's on my to-do, wherever stage of life I'm in, am I in the process of dying finished? And so if I earn today with the work that I've done, being present, giving it my all, then I feel good about the effort that I gave that day.
Wow, that's incredible. So how do you transition from, okay, I have this full-time job all day long. Let's talk about that and just be able to, I love practical, tactical. How do we serve people that are in this spot of wrestling with God about these next steps, this, what I call this God-sized idea that I believe that we all have inside of us, to be able to walk that out in different ways. So how do you go from I'm working this full-time job to did I earn today and be able to, I know, and I love this about you. I know that one of the things that you talk about on a regular basis is stop defending the excuses that kind of get in the way. So let's start diving into that a little bit and just break down what do you mean by that phrase and how does it work itself out and how can we be equipped to really acknowledge that sometimes we're the ones that are getting in the way of doing the things that God's called us to do.
100%. The excuses thing is looking at I can't do X or I only have this much time for X. It's always another side of that perspective. And that's honestly where one of the areas core focuses. That's why the first part of my book is on personal development and like changing the way you think. Because if you can't change the way you think, you can't change the way you do anything else. You can't change your approach or perspective to anything. And so instead of looking at I have to work this job, which I'm not against a job because some people do find purpose and meaning in their work and that's fine. They just also want to do something else. So that's fine. But my thing is, let's start looking at what is available to us, what's possible. And so some, like I said, very tangible. I love the tangible stuff. I started looking, okay, I'm working about 38 to 40 hours every single week. How much time to that can I commit to doing at least audible learning and put my subconscious mind to work? I'm very much so into the spiritual, but I'm also very much so into the tangible psychological. What do I have that I can use to my disposal? Okay, I know we have the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind can only say yes. No matter what you tell it, it can only say yes. And I know my subconscious mind is always working for my good if I'm putting good stuff towards it. And so something I learned from my mentor years ago was the benefit of personal development. We get off on it because it feels for a time inauthentic. Even I felt like these people must be weirdos. There's no way they just positive all the time. And then it's not. It's just making sure you give yourself the tools and the good seed bed, if you will, the good fertilizer. So when you start to see weeds, you can pluck them out so that you're cultivating the land. It's not about always having green grass. It's about cultivating the land. And so that's how I take the perspective on the mindset. Tangible thing I did to put that to work is I'm like, okay, I can at least take 32 hours to develop to personal development. So every day, because I could have earbuds in my ear, which they would say you could listen to music. It don't matter what you're listening to. Yeah. So I queue up a podcast. I queue up podcasts on certain days, depending on when they released or certain people. I queued up certain courses that I was invested in and I queued up certain YouTube videos. I do a playlist for the week. So every week it was something different that I should be listening to.
Oh, nice.
And so it made sure it equaled up to that 30 to 32 hours. So every week, guaranteed, I had at least 30 hours on the low end that I was going to be able to contribute to listening to personal development content. And that's not including like books or whatever that you can throw in there too. And so I'm like, okay, the other thing is that we get great ideas, but we lose them. I don't believe in that. That's dumb. Like, why? We have a bajillion tools You got smartwatches, we got smartphones, we got pen and paper. And if I'm not in a position to write something down or what have you, if I'm driving, then I queued up the Alexa person that you can put on your phone. And you also have Siri, you have the Google Assistant. Don't matter who, those are all free and available to you. And so I just would say, take a note, such and such, take a note. And so you can start an audio message. And then I have just where I can tap on my phone, the voice memos, and on my watch. So you can tap voice memos. So I can at least audibly record what I'm thinking, what my idea is. I always have a journal. I have one right now as a gift my mom, she gave me like 6 of these, which is amazing because I go through those. I'm about to finish one, and that's the new one I'm getting ready to start. So write my ideas down. So even though I'm at work, and even though, because we can pretty much do our jobs autonomous, like we don't need thinking brain power for that. And what we do need it for, it's very small. And the mistakes even that you might make would be very small. And quite frankly, I'm all for blessing the job that's blessing you and giving them your best at work so that, so you can continue to pay, make as much money as you can while you're there.
Yeah.
But the small mistakes that I may make because I am paying more attention to the exit strategy than my internal, I'm okay with that. So I give myself some grace on that. Oh, this number was transposed. It's fine. Whatever. It's a rounding error. And that's fine. Whatever. And so I would take notes. And so I would fill journals up to the point, like one lady asked me, she was like, are you taking notes like for work? I said, hell no, I ain't taking works for this job. I ain't doing for what? Like, I promise you, it's not that serious for a job. I'm like, no. I'm like, this is for me. This is my personal journal. Because they would just see me writing constantly. They like in a team meeting, if I'm getting an idea anywhere, I'm capturing it. So there is a way to avoid losing your ideas of simply capturing them. Okay, we talked about having medical challenges. Again, super into the tangible. And I only have so much time that I can invest in while I am driving, working, whatever. Okay, how much time do I have when I'm at home? How much time do I have on the drive home? How much time does that add up per year? I think it's something like over a month or something that we would spend commuting just different things in the car. No more radio. Don't need it. For what? Any news alerts or whatever, they'll pop up on your phone. It's not that big of a deal. Unless it's involved in the world that you plan to change in that realm, it's not that important. And so I stopped listening to the radio. Stop listening to pretty much anything other than audiobooks, programs, and just the courses and stuff like that. So I put that on for the car. The other thing is when I got home, I have an execution strategy for when I get home every day. I had to work around my health challenges because I never knew if I was going to have a good day physically or a bad day. And I just wasn't going to be able to do anything. Right. And so I needed to deal with that. So I'm like, okay, what can I do? What does this make possible? I can have a capture day and take notes and strategize. At least I can put my brain to work when my body physically isn't capable. And then when I am in a position to execute, then I have that as an execution day. Which day is it going to be? I don't know. But to give myself some grace about it, if I have 7 bad days in a row and I have 1 really good day, that means that it is a powerhouse day because I have 7 days worth of stuff that I've planned that I can now execute on. So it was never any excuse. And so I was always going to have something, some variation of that every week. And so I just put it to work. Nothing is a level of impossibility. It's just about what does it make possible? What's available here? And sometimes your best just isn't enough. You have to learn to do what's required. And that's part of that as well. It's, you're going to push yourself. You're going to be tired. Family time or quality time or whatever may be off that may feel against your values temporarily. That's okay. Just get your family buy-in to say, I'm trying to do something for real this time, not playing around. I'm trying to do something. And your family will honor that as long as you're willing to honor that and they see you honoring that.
Yep. I've noticed that in my household. When I stood up and say, hey, mom wants to do something. I live with the biggest group of cheerleaders on the planet right here in my own house. And so when I'm down or when I'm struggling or I'm making my own excuses, they're like, wait a minute, mom, didn't you say you were going to do something? And they fill in the blank. And actually, I love that because I've done that for them for years. So now what's happening is so our youngest 2 are teenagers still at home, and my husband, because I've poured into them for so many years, giving them advice and building their character, and we've homeschooled for 15 years. Now what's happening is they're turning back around and saying, wait a minute, you're going through And you said you were going to do this last week. Did you get that done? And I had this most amazing conversation with my daughter a couple of weeks ago when I was really having a hard time. I was really struggling. I had come back from our mastermind in Spokane and I just was really struggling. And so we went on a drive and chit chatted about some stuff. And Sophia was going through a list of questions. I was like, wow, this is so helpful. Thank you so much. And she's diving in deeper and not letting me like stay on the surface and digging under. And I said, I so appreciate that. She says, Mom, I'm just doing what you do for me all the time. And I was like, oh, my heart was singing, not just because it was sweet to see her do what I've modeled for her, but more than anything, it's because she sensed exactly what I needed at that point in time and was able to express that in a way that helped to unlock something in me and get me back on the path. So
I love that. Starting to see those seeds start to bloom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The other thing that I love about what you're talking about, Diana, is you're creating a plan. I think one of the worst things that we can do, especially as believers, is be bad stewards. It's like a core value of mine. I want to be a good steward to all God's given me, whether it's working in a job or doing contract work or in my business or the people that God's put around me. Like this is something that is who I am as a person, is to be a good steward to what God's given me. So for us, when I transitioned from a successful corporate career into being a full-time stay-at-home homeschooling mom and then back into building a business, we always had a plan. And so one thing that I would say, and that's what I heard while you were talking through the process, is you're spending time and deciding ahead of time, these are the activities that I'm going to do while I'm at work. These are the activities that I'm going to do while I'm in the car. These are the activities that I'm going to do. And so I love that because you're not only talking about how do I use the best of my time when I'm at work, but how do I also use the best of my time when I have those moments of downtime instead of getting distracted? And nothing wrong with TikTok or Netflix, but sometimes, I don't know, for me, what I notice is I start evaluating my schedule and saying, oh, I probably don't need to be watching another show or watching another something to entertain myself. What I do need to be doing is going forward and taking the steps that God's shown me to do next and be obedient to that. So what are your thoughts on that? Because you and I had a little bit of a precursor of our conversation while we were getting started about taking those action steps. So let's talk about that a little bit. Why don't you share your perspective of you've heard from God about your next steps. Like how do you then what do you do next?
Yeah, I try to stay away from busy work as much as possible because that is a slow downward spiral into doing nothing. It still amounts to doing nothing. I don't care how much other accessorized type work you have to do. It's still just an accessory. It's still not the core thing. And so it boils down to a couple things. Number one is like, what is the quickest path to profit? Obviously, we need to do something because our time is worth something. I don't care if it's your day one, your time is worth something. And so we need to evaluate what's the quickest path to profit. For some people, that may be coaching. For some people, it may be offering a service for doing something, like it may be consulting work, and maybe freelancing work in some aspect, or selling something, whatever that thing is. So what's the quickest path to profit? Let's build a page so we can actually put a buy button someplace. This is myname.com. Yeah. This is the email list that you can join. Here's the thing that you can buy. Simple. So a lot of times we start thinking about the most complex and the best way that we could do that. But the most complex and the best way is just an excuse to deter and to go research and figure out some stuff. And then I'll do it. It's no. What's the quickest path to profit? And then what is the simplest path to profit? And even if you don't have to be led by money and in love with money and whatever else, that's fine. But money is like oxygen. It's like breathing. You ain't got none. You can't do nothing. Like it's a currency. It needs to flow. So we need to start reinvesting because these tools, these services, the courses, all this stuff is going to cost something. Why don't we start creating a wheel of currency where we got money coming in for the stuff that we need for money to go out? For that, myname.com. Easy. Name.com. Yeah. What is it? The code is privacy, please. And that will get you like whatever discount on the privacy stuff that you need. You can sometimes buy your name for $2, $3, $5, $20. We spend worse than that on DoorDash and all that stuff. Definitely Amazon, Lord. And so it's like,
Starbucks.
Oh, Listen, it's
Anywhere these
terrible.
days.
Yes, terrible. So it's like yourname.com. Okay, email list, because we always need to be building a community, people that want to know more about you, get connected with you. Easy, convertkit.com. It's free up to the first 1,000 or something like that. Easy. Name, email, address, end of story. That's it.
Yeah.
So we got our URL for our name.com. We got the email list so we can sign people up. And honestly, that's it. Everything else can come later. Don't I need a website? With ConvertKit, I'm saying it because it is the simplest path to doing something. And honestly, a lot of big corporations and people use ConvertKit, so there's nothing wrong with them. There's something that's scalable, and it checks off a lot of the boxes that maybe you don't need to know. You need a check mark for it, but just know that it does. Mm-hmm. And so you can build a page right then and there, say, oh, I want the heading to say this, and I want a box for their name and email address and a button. And then if they want to buy a thing, whether it be a digital product or whatever, here's a button for them to check out. You can make the pages there, and you can actually receive income from there. Most of us have PayPal account, or maybe you need to set up a business PayPal account. All this stuff is name, date of birth, the same stuff you use to make a bank account is the same stuff you can use to set up any of these tools. So that tech, like I'm not techie, let that go. That's an excuse you don't need to hold on to. Yeah. That don't have nothing to do with the conversation. We talk about nothing technical. So if you can set up a bank account, you can do any of this stuff. So again, the quickest path to profit, the simplest path to profit. And honestly, once you do that, it don't matter how you're going to go about getting clients. You now have the ability to start to receive them. The worst thing that you want to do is to be doing, again, all this related stuff, accessories to the main business, and not the root work. Because I'm told, well, how can I pay you? How can I start working with you? We're not ready to launch yet. Yeah. What do you mean I can't give you no money? Make it very easy for people to give you money. Right. It's very simple. Make it very easy for people to give you money. Everything else, you can figure it out after the fact. But if you can at least do that, now when you make content, you have somewhere for people to go to get the free download or get on your email list or buy the thing. Very easy. It just is you make a PDF in canva.com. You want to make an ebook or whatever, or a white paper or a checklist, all that can be done in Canva. If you have a nonprofit, now this is especially good for people that work in ministry work in churches and stuff, you can get the paid account for free. Just give them the nonprofit number. And so a lot of these tools, if you have a nonprofit account, you can rack in on the paid version. Tiers of stuff are free to nonprofits or discounted, heavily discounted. So with Canva, you can get it for free if they are still doing that, which I believe that they are. And so you can do that. Make your PDF, you're done. Now we can start working on like the content stuff or whatever. But some of this other stuff, people take way too much time on things that are like year 2, year 1.5 down the road, not day 1, day 30 and day 60 and day 90 type stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking about a client that I worked with that was so hung up on like brand colors and the name of the business for such a long stretch of time, and just was never able to move forward because they allowed themselves to get stuck in something that really in the whole scheme of things is not that important. I understand, like I'm thinking about this person and picturing their face in my mind. I know that it seemed so important to them right then and there, but trying to coach them through the process of saying, come on, you can do this. Just decide, just make a decision and go for it. So I love what you're talking about, because simple makes it straightforward. Sometimes simple doesn't always necessarily mean easy. And the other thought that I had was that it's not that I am not going to run into maybe some resistance of trying something new, but I do it anyway. Mm-hmm. Even if there's resistance and I don't know where to go find a domain. You've given some incredible examples of not just the steps to take, but also the resources to go and do this thing. Yeah, let's just be honest. You might run into some resistance as you learn a new tool, but don't let that stop you. Like give yourself, just like you do in your corporate job, give yourself a buffer of time that says, I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to do it until it's figured out. But I'm also going to say, I'm going to sit down for 90 minutes every day until it's done. It might not, maybe it takes 1 day or 2 days or a week or something like that. But your speed will be rewarded by just being able to get a task done and moving on to the next thing. And then your brain actually rewards you as well because you're not stuck and feeling
Yep.
like I'm stuck, and all that I'm doing is telling myself I'm stuck.
Yeah. It's like all of that, the brand colors, all that, I get that. So what do I call my business? Like all that stuff it becomes important later on, but essentially you can run just off of yourname.com. Like it, or just like your name in essence, because you are the brand at the end of the day. Unless you are building a McDonald's or Nike, a sports print or something like that is a dedicated brand that stands alone.
Yeah.
And even doing that to where it has like tribe level following, that is a process. And until then, everybody's following the person until it becomes person agnostic. We ain't there yet. We just talking about setting your stuff. And the way I like to think of it, I make it very easy. It's like, how much time are you going to waste playing around with this? Or do you actually want to get to what God called you to do? Which one is it going to be? We going to play with brand colors, or we going to actually get to work? Because if we are, then we can't, like you playing yourself. So it's like when we look, it's like I make it like put the giant right smack dab in front of your face. I don't care what hex code colors you pick. You can go to, it spells out like coolers. It's spelled like colors, but just like too many O's. If you Google it, it'll come up. It'll give you the color codes to figure out something that's close to it. And then when you actually make some money, you can go and hire a brand specialist to refine. The things that we need to execute, day one stuff, we can later hire somebody or even temporarily bring somebody on just to refine those things and to get it to that point. But none of that stuff is stopping people from working with you or won't be the make or break thing. Again, we're thinking about the best way sometime to do something instead of the simplest way. And another way I like to think about it when it comes to some of that tech stuff that's even more time consuming, everybody got a DianaGladney family. Somebody that's uber nerdy, uber tech savvy, and that can do that for you in 45 minutes. Like it literally could do all those things in 45 minutes. And you know what usually it is? It's the 17-year-old somewhere in the family. It's the 15-year-old or the 12-year-old somewhere in the family that knows all of that stuff. And honestly, for most of the things, you're about 1 or 2 YouTube videos away from the answer and just being able to do it, because most people have a walkthrough on it somewhere on YouTube. So it's all figure outable.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. My kids, when they were younger, they'd do something around the house and they'd be like, "Hey, this is Christian. Welcome to my YouTube channel." And then they would start. And I was like, "You guys go do these things." They're less hung up on getting on camera sometimes than I was when I first started. They were less hung up on the things that I was at my age than they were at their age, which I thought was amazing and also inspiring. I was like, my goodness, if my kids can do these things, for sure, like I have a little bit more expert knowledge in some of the areas that I'm really good at. Of course I can show up and do these things. So
yeah, 100%.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to the process, right? We get our mindset. We're going down the right path. We stop having the excuses and we start taking action steps. What would you recommend for somebody who's ready to take that next step? Like they have an offer, they've gone through the process of creating just a way to make money, because with revenue in our business, so many things can open up. I can hire people, I can trade services with people, like I can use software and tools to automate and make things easier. So with revenue, like the whole world changes. The other thing I would say is, without revenue, sometimes we're just really like a hobby instead of a business. And so we want to be aware of that. But what would be the next steps that you would coach somebody to walk through?
Obviously, if you start speaking your message, like nobody can I hate the whole thing of whatever town's best kept secret. No, there's a funny way of saying nobody knows about us, but when you find us, you really like us. No, let's not be whatever your hometown is best kept secret. Let's be the brazen everyone knows about business. And the way you start doing that is speaking your message, and you will find and be able to clarify your brand messaging. Even the more you start to speak your message, the easiest way to do that, start speaking that into forms of content. You don't feel 100% confident being on camera, big whoop-de-doo. It's not really not that big of a deal, but you can start an audio only podcast. Just to start getting your feet wet or what have you. Start making short form content. You can do stories like on Instagram. TikTok was playing around with that, but Instagram and Facebook is the heaviest hard hitters with that one. And so you could do stories, 15 seconds or less. Do you have something that's 15 seconds or less that you could make a clip about? Those disappear every 24 hours. Nobody's going to remember what the heck you did 24 hours ago. They barely remember what clothes they wore last week. Those pieces of content you can use for other things. You will have access to them. Nobody else will, but you can start to produce content simply on your phone. Nothing really hard pressed technically about that. You hold the button down, you can make a story and start speaking your message. The more that you start doing that, the more that you find, number one, you build your confidence. Number two, you start to hear yourself in the way you sound. You have something to go back to where you're like, that I felt really good when I was talking about X. I want to talk more about that on the next one. And so you find that this engine starts to become fueled, the gears start to become oiled. And now you have like more of it of a track record of just making content, even if it's just in really small segments of stuff. If I want to commit to doing 30 seconds or less of a piece of content on Instagram stories. And it's maybe once a week I do a short, or I'm doing an Instagram reel or whatever, or TikTok video, because they all synonymous at this point for the length and all that stuff, 60 seconds or less. Hell, it'd be some people, it's like I said, do 30 seconds or less. You made a 3-minute video in your stories. You can do a 3-minute video on YouTube then at that point, because they find that muscle builds quickly. It's not something that takes forever. This is like a 1 to 2 week process to build that muscle because it builds quickly. And so you can start speaking your message. Then you find out the stuff that you thought about on paper, that maybe you planned out on paper, you want to refine and do some things different. Maybe you want to change some of your offerings. You want to refine what you want. You figure out the new freemium, that premium free offer that you're going to offer to people, that it was something else, or you start getting feedback from your community and those that are listening to you and what have you and resonating with what you're saying. And so now you start to refine the messaging, and now you can start to do things that will scale it, but you can't do that just all your ideas only exist in your brain and only exist on paper. We got to start putting it to work. So content becomes the engine that we use to do that.
So what if somebody has, like, they're on the flip side, they'll say, Anita, Diana, I have all of these ideas and I can't do it in 30 seconds or 15 seconds. When I start talking, I just go crazy. And one of two things is happening. Either I have so much to say, I can't possibly cut it down to that small segment, or I've written so many notes, and then now what? Like, how do I turn that into content? Like, how do we break through those ideas slash also known as excuses?
Yeah, 100%. And so the first thing is saying that it's like most people think they're multi-passionate, and you may have different interests, because we all definitely do, but not to the level of, could this topic, this interest, this purposeful work type of stuff that you're talking about survive the 5-year content if you deliver a new piece of content every week? Some stuff is no. There's a lot of things, and you'll figure out the more you actually start producing on that stuff, you find that you're not that interested. But on the inside, every idea seems like an amazing idea until it's executed on. And then it don't seem that great once you know what? I don't like the people that this is attracting to the business. I am annoyed talking about this after a while. I don't want to do this anymore. That's fine, but you won't know, because all ideas feel great on the inside and they all are at the same level because you're full up on the inside. You have to start expelling that stuff out. The other thing with that is you want to look at content pillars. Could we sit down and just draw like 3 lines on a piece of paper? And it's like all of these ideas would fit in what category? Or you can use something like Gemini, Google Gemini, the AI tools. Here's all the ideas, brain dump. Here's all the ideas that I can think about. I like to do timers, like nonstop writing timers, where I'll put for 90 seconds, whatever long you think it may be, 10 seconds, and just type and write without ceasing. And I'll say, these are all the ideas that I have. I need to figure out, what are my content verticals? What are these main pillars of content that I could talk about under this specific niche that you think you want to talk about, or your business or whatever? It's like, what are the commonalities here? What would you say would be the 4 main pillars? It will do it for you. Organize those ideas for you. You don't have to do it mentally. And sometimes we can use technology to our benefit. And then you'll figure out, like, okay, yeah, one is personal development. This one's tech. This one's strategy. This one's blah, blah, blah. And it's okay. So which one do I feel most excited to talk about? That's usually what the easiest piece of content to produce first. And next is, what are you most excited to talk about? Why? Because you need to produce that one. Because if you try to produce anything else that for some reason you feel obligated to do, but you don't really feel in love with it in the moment, you only are going to be thinking about that one piece that you really want to talk about most. So let's just do that. Get the quick win of actually, man, I felt good. Man, I felt energized, and attracts likes. So a good production day or a good piece of content that we produce can lead to another piece of content that we produce. And it just becomes this type of content adrenaline that you have, because you're going from one win to the next. So I like to coach my clients to do, what are you most excited to talk about? Let's talk about that. Let's do a week of talking about that. We got a whole series, which you can do for a month, and just talk about that. Then you're like, okay, now I feel really good about this. Let's talk about this. Great. Let's do another week of this, another month of this, where this is the next stage in the series of what we're doing. It works great because, number one, you feel fueled in what you're talking about. You're never getting exhausted by what you're talking about. And you have a logical plan to taking what is the next logical step for me to move from here to here. And if we start looking at what's the order that maybe my ideal target audience needs help with this in, or what makes the most sense to deliver this in, then let's talk about it. It's fine if you don't produce it in maybe the exact order or what have you. That's fine. We're not producing a course, we're producing content on it. So they'll find the stuff eventually, but let's talk about that. And so, if you lean in to what you're most excited about, you will get to this other stuff. But usually there is something that you're more excited to talk about than something else on that list.
I love that. I love that the practice of going through what you're talking about builds the evidence, which builds my confidence, which fuels me to keep going. There's that cycle that happens. And we know this, especially when we work a job. We're good at what we do. So then therefore we have this confidence over here. But when we start something new and start to go down the path of being an entrepreneur, oftentimes what I found, like on my journey, and maybe this was the same for you, is that I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. And I needed to be able to flex those muscles again to like, wait a minute, I was so good over here. And all of a sudden I'm moving over here. And I was like, I don't know what I'm talking about. And it crushes you. Like those are some of the things that I went through. And I was like, nope, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to show up every day and on the schedule that I laid out for myself that I could maintain. So, I could maintain it, and it would push me a little bit farther out of my comfort zone and just show up again and again and again and again. Some of it is garbage. Just because I was working through the process of showing up on camera every day, that's okay. I'm so proud of myself for actually going and doing it anyway, because it also, like what you just mentioned, is it got some of those like cobweb ideas out of the way so that I could actually get to the good stuff that I was really passionate about and really driven to talk about. And yes, I would. So what Diana is describing here as you're listening, it's like, that's the journey that we all go through when we start creating content and you're flexing this new muscle. It's like when you haven't worked out in a while and you're starting to work out, you're sore, but you want to get up and do it again. And because you want the outcome that comes after going and doing some strength training or something like that. So I just so appreciate what you're talking about. And I love it. I love everything. I love you as a friend, and I love everything that you bring to the table, because what you're doing is you're making it simple for me, for everybody that's listening, to be able to say, what's the next step? And then how do I go and just do that? So
it's like you got it. Yeah, I would just say you have to, that's the whole thing. We have so much competence and we have so much courage in what we're currently doing. Doing something new can make you sometimes think and bring up some of those insecurities that may have surfaced someplace else. This is a whole new ball game. And number one, this is a God ordained thing. God called you to do something specific. So there's courage and encouragement in knowing that you're pursuing that. But like I said, that's why it's important to start leaning into what, even though later on you may look back and say, that I cannot believe I made that piece of content. When you are in the process of it, I think that's one of the biggest things that I can give to the audience right now, is just keep that in mind, that phrase, I am in the process of. So that it does not bog you down when you look back on something, because of somewhere in those videos of what you're producing, just if you're producing every week, you'll say, that's the best video I ever made. There are pieces right now I could look back on and I cringe. I'm like, please, I should have deleted that off the interwebs. But it's at that point, I knew I was in the process of getting better at becoming a better content creator, learning my camera at the time, learning the camera stuff in general. And I'm like, I would finish that video. I'm like, this is the best video I ever made. And it was.
Nice.
But it's not the best video you will ever make yet. Like, it's not there, but it's the best video. You'll feel it. I'm so proud of this. And that's fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to compare yourself to anything or anybody other than where you are right now. And even if you feel like it could have been better, just move on. Produce, publish, and move on. I have this phrase and these shirts in my business, like create, post, repeat, because we don't have time to be trying to do perfect, but we can get as close to right as possible and move on. So it's create, post, repeat, and just remember, if you always are thinking, I'm in the process of X, becoming better at X, doing better at X, if you're always in the process of, you can never be upset with where you currently are in that current step, that current strategy, that whatever, because you're never judging yourself too harshly enough to where you cause yourself to cease and stop. You just remember, just think, I'm always in the process of, then that'll always get you to the next logical step to help you just keep taking daily progressive steps.
That's so good. You are such an amazing woman. I so appreciate you just being here
Thank
today
you.
and encouraging everybody and just blessing us with just your knowledge and your experience and the journey that you've been on. Can you tell everybody before we wrap up here, how can people connect with you if they want to dive in deeper with Diana?
100%. Same advice I gave earlier. It's yourname.com. So it's DianaGladney.com. And you can find me on YouTube at DianaGladney.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much. I just appreciate everything that you're doing. And yeah, you're super awesome, Diana. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.